Hey guys, welcome back to Air Down. Hope your Christmas was good. It's been a while since I've been on, but here I am again. Let's get right into it. This is a Dana 60 ring gear high pinion for a Superduty Dana 60. And you can see mine is shaved. Now, these are supposed to fit a stock ring and pinion without being shaved if they're 9.5 inch diameter. And I measured this one, and I can grab a tape and show you, but it measured over 9 3/4. So we're gonna have to shave this pretty much. So I'll show you how I would shave a Dana 60 ring and pinion in my garage. Now, what I'm gonna do is try and stick this on my stock carrier, the open carrier that came out of this. And if it'll actually fit in there and still clear this bottom plate, then I've got something I can use to spin up the ring gear and machine it down with a flat disc in my angle grinder. It doesn't need much, needs about an 1/8 inch off the radius, and I think those teeth stand about an 1/8 inch tall, maybe a little less. It shouldn't take too long, but if, and I'm really hoping it does, but if this doesn't fit in here as is, then I will have to make some kind of contraption that I put on my welding bench. I don't really want to do that, so hopefully we don't have to. The first step is going to be getting this ring gear put on my old carrier. Let's get the heater going. That's gonna help quite a bit. Well, this channel's got some pretty big news. And if you didn't notice from my last video, I got sponsored by Sneeby's Off-Road. So a big shout out to Sneeby's, and this is the first load of stuff I got. Now, I'm not getting all of this for free, I still paid for it, but Sneeby's gives me a really great discount. Steve, thank you, and for anyone out there that needs to buy off-road stuff, give Sneeby's a chance. I mean, he's a guy just like us, he supports us, and he's hooking me up because he finds value in what I do. So support people that support us. He's a rock crawler just like us. Okay, first things first, this is my stock carrier. I already pulled a carrier bearing off of it trying to, I was gonna cut this up and make a pusher to push the new carrier bearings on. And then I thought to myself, I'm gonna have to shave it, so I better just leave it alone. I'm glad I remembered before I cut this all up. So, you can see it's pretty grimy. I'm gonna have to fix that. And this is not the race for it, actually. So this will have to go back on. I'm gonna have to clean it because it's super gross. From feedback I've gotten on the channel, you guys really like it when I crack a beer open, but I'm on a diet, so I'm cracking tea open. So hopefully this, hopefully this satisfies you guys out there. Blech. Okay. I don't need to go nuts cleaning this. I don't really care if it's dirty. What I really care about is the surface where the ring gear sits. That has to be clean. And then the bearings just have to be clean enough to rotate. They could even rotate chunky, I don't care. We'll get this bearing land here. So let's head over to the press and shove this back on. There we go, we're going on. Quick visual inspection. You can see there's quite a bunch of this left, and that's because there used to be shims under here and I didn't bother to put the shims back. We can finagle how the race sits on in that housing without using shims. We don't want it to be tight because then this won't spin. We want it to be loose so it just spins freely. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is slip the ring gear over this. Whoops. And I'm going to just throw 3 of the original bolts up into it, and I'm not gonna tighten them. I might hand crank them just a little bit, but then I'm gonna flip this over and push the ring gear onto this with a couple pieces of wood. The last thing we wanna do is be cranking on the threads of this ring gear and maybe strip out a thread or something. So it's fairly easy, get it lined up, thread the bolt right in, no problem. Rotate it around until the next one goes in. Roughly space it around like to the 3 are equally spaced. Now the reasoning behind putting the bolts in, I want this to be lined up well with the bolts. I'm gonna push it on, and if I didn't have bolts in there, the holes could become misaligned as I push the ring gear on, and that would be really frustrating. So now, we've got the ring gear on, we've got 3 bolts threaded in, so now I'm just going to set up my wood. Okay, the wood's not tall enough, so I need some more 2x4s. Okay, I've got enough wood in here now. Okay, ow. Now, we crank. Alright, so this is pretty much set up. I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to tighten this back one a little bit, because the ring gear's sitting up a tiny bit higher back here. And I'm just going to be very careful when I crank it to not go too high in the foot-pounds, you know? Another thing nice is if you start early like that and you get them leveled, you get the ring gear leveled right away. I mean, you're just barely screwing down on the screws and it levels the ring gear out real nice. So now we just shove it down into this wood, and you can just see it's walking on nice and easy. And don't be afraid to squish that wood. Give a little visual inspection. Yeah, everything's connected, so now, yeah, the bolts work them way in nice and smooth. We're just gonna give them, I don't know, 30, 40 foot-pounds. And we're not gonna need anything more than that. We don't need to do tons of bolts because we're just throwing it in and shaving it. So don't go ham on the bolts or anything, but that's the ring gear on the old Carrier. Now, let's hope and pray that it fits in the housing. All right, guys, drum roll. Oh no. Oh. It doesn't fit. Crap. All right, time to get our thinking caps on. Okay, I'm just thinking something really basic here. We don't have to go nuts. If we just leave it sitting upright like this, it spins pretty easy. And I'm thinking if I can just, like, I would just tack weld the race to the table, but if I push it a little bit much, it wants to lean. So I'm thinking what I have to do is at least clamp it enough to hold it from tipping side to side. Okay, kind of to my shock and surprise here, all I did was throw this clamp on it lightly, just enough to kind of keep it from wanting to fall out sideways. Now I can push on this quite a bit actually, and it still just spins really nice and easy. I mean, you can see it's not on there even hardly that tight. So I'm thinking what I'm gonna do now is just tack weld the race in 2 spots here, just so it won't go if I shove it. And then I might set the clamp up just kind of like this, get it just tight enough to where I want it, and then maybe tack weld it to the table here and then tack weld it onto this plate. So I'm going to smooth out a spot on my table, get rid of some rust, tack, clamp, and we'll start the process. Okay, so what we've got here, this clamp is solidly on the table, at least it's tack welded. I could probably bust it off, so I should chill out. The bottom is tack welded on, so Yep, that's nice and solid. There is my jig to start shaving this ring gear down. So let's see how that goes. Okay, mask, glasses, Sneeby's off-road hat, earplugs. Now, I got a flap disc on here. The reason why I want to use a flap disc instead of a grinding wheel is that grinding wheel tends to impact stuff, kind of has a hard impact on the surface, and I don't want to cause any like stress risers or micro fractures or anything like that. So I'm going to use something softer, but let's just give it a trial run, see what happens. Well, hell, Annabelle, I think that went pretty well. Did you catch that rhyme? I wanted to get you nice and close, that way you can see that shiny edge developing. That is the shaved edge, and you can kind of see I've shaved just about down to where the tooth meets the body. And unfortunately for me, I don't have a nice pair of calipers that can gauge the width of this. So what I'm going to do is just snake a tape measure underneath this pin here if I can, and then determine kind of close to the width. Now, when I did my Ford 10.5, let me back you up. When I did the 10.5 on this, the Ford 10.5, I was very careful to get this within their specs, which was like 10 inches plus or minus 20 thou. But with this, I'm just taking the very end off, and that's not gonna be somewhere where the pattern's gonna really lie. You take so much, you take a 1/4 inch off of the 10.5, but this one, you just take a sliver, like an 1/8 inch. So I'm not gonna be too concerned. I'm shaving it down very nicely, very circular, so we're not gonna have a problem with this ring and pinion. Let's see if I can get this in there without ruining anything. Aha! Okay. It was like 9 3/4 plus a 1/16, so whatever that is. And we've gone to 9 3/4. So we've got a lot more grinding to do actually. That's a lot more physically demanding than you would think. Crouching down and letting the grinder do its thing. We're at 5/32 of an inch away from 9 1/2. And we've already gone down about 5/32, so we're really halfway there already. All right, it's just before the kids go to bed, so I'm gonna take one more whack at this. And I think after that last one, it'll be so close that I can just throw it in the housing and take a measurement of the clearance to the bottom plate. And if I still need a little bit more, I'll just shave the tack welds off this bottom bearing and we'll just run it in the actual housing. I think let's go just a little bit longer. I think I got one more of those in me before I just give out. When I'm on there, I'm pushing that angle grinder against this as pretty much as hard as I reasonably can, so it's a little bit difficult to say the least. Okay, this time I got me a little rolly stool, so that might help out. Man, I am biting into this ring gear a lot more than I thought I was gonna have to. I mean, and it's warm, but it's like pleasantly warm. Like 105 degrees, hot tub kind of warm. I got about an 1/8 more to go in total. One thing that really helps with this, having 2 angle grinders. Because this one, just from doing that little bit of grinding, is already pretty hot. I mean, it's not boiling over, but it's pretty hot. How about that? I keep looking down the sides as it spins so I can see if it's standing straight up and down the edge with things in the distance. And for the most part, it's cutting pretty much straight up and down. It might be tapered out along with the original taper just a little bit, but that's okay. Pretty much every time I do this, I knock about a 32nd of an inch off of it, so. We just have a few more of those to do, and I think it'll be good. I think it'll be important to take this ring gear off of here soon to get a good measurement, or at least figure out how to punch this pin out, because I think this center pin pushing down on the tape measure is causing some measurement discrepancy, and I don't want to hack too much of this ring gear off for no reason. Let's just, we can always reassemble this. Let's just take this off now. Well, last week, it's been a week now that this is sat, I kind of quit with this pin, trying to push this pin out, but I don't have anything to help punch this out, and I kept forgetting to get something from work. So we're just gonna throw this thing in the housing and then just have a look at it. And if it looks good, then we'll just remove it from this carrier and clean it up and final install it on the new locker and be done. So let's do that. Now I'm going to use a new race out of my setup kit because I, of course, welded the old race to the table, and I don't want to take the time to make sure it's all shaved down to fit with the bench grinder. But I'm going to make sure I put this on. I'm going to put a finger full of gear oil in here, so that any metal chunks in here don't kind of scar this guy up while I'm running it. Because if it needs a little space, I'm going to spin it in here and just grind it down in here so I can just measure it, and then it'll be easy. Blurp. Yep, that's all we need. Just a blurp. It actually goes in the housing, which is way better than it was last time. I also just realized I'm in my snow pants still. We went out snow wheeling today. I didn't videotape it, sorry about that. But sometimes it's just nice to be out there and enjoy it without the camera on, you know what I mean? So it was throttle therapy for me. I did lots of donuts, you'll just have to imagine it. All right, before I take any measurements, I'm going to shove this race over so that well, I can't really donk it around until I install the caps, but I'm going to shove this race over to kind of simulate the races being preloaded, because that'll lift the carrier up to center line, and right now it's probably just sagging in the races. Let's just shove it over what we can. I'm only getting a few thousandths out of it. On the Ford 10.5, there's 2 big, thick shims on either side, so removing one kind of gave me more than a screwdriver's width to fit in there. But the important thing is just to take the screwdrivers and shove the race over as much as it'll go. They fit in this pocket really tight, so once you shove them over, they generally speaking stay put. And now I'll install these. Just a really light rattle gun tight. I don't need to go nuts on them. I don't need to go full tight. Haha, I found it. My picture reference for when I took this down in the first place. You always want to take a picture of this, where the caps are and how they're aligned, what orientation they're in, and if they're not explicit from just looking at it, you want to stamp it on there somewhere. Don't paint it on, because that'll come off with chemicals. But get a punch and stamp it on. Use some kind of code that lets you know left or right. On this one, there's like a little L shape stamped on both, and it faces different directions. This will go to about 60 foot-pounds, just so you're wondering. Okay, so now, if I grab this ring gear, I shouldn't be able to hear it clunk too much. Okay, it doesn't clunk at all. So I got the perfect fitment of the race this way, but still little enough that it spins free. So that's about perfect. Let's get in here and see what our clearance is. I don't know if you can see it or not. Oopsie. Cannot exceed 9.5 inches in diameter. I'll just go for some more shaving here, and maybe I'll just get a smaller tape measure that I have and throw it in there, see if that works. But more shaving is on the agenda. Alright, before I go bananas, here's a different tape measure. It's thinner and smaller, less likely to be swayed by having to slide underneath. Okay, according to this tape measure, we've got a 1/16 of an inch to go, so not much shaving. Since I have no way to pop the pin out and I don't want to be here for an eternity, what we'll likely end up doing is pulling the ring gear off and just see how close we are. Which is annoying, but it is what it is. I got the feeling that we're really close. It's a little over 9.5 on the tape. So let's go ahead and pop it back out and have also an actual measure on the bench so we can make for certain. And if it still looks really dang close on the bench, we'll just pop the ring gear off. I mean, it's not like if it was a thou or two over, and I'm using a tape measure for crying out loud. But it's not like if it was a thou or even 10 thou over, if that's the difference between this thing exploding or not. So let's go see how close we are. I'd rather take as little off as I had to, you know what I mean? Very loud. Okay, now I'll meet you guys back on the bench. I gotta be honest, I've taken a lot more off this ring gear than I thought I would have to. Well, I wish there was a great way to show you, but this is like 10 or 20 thousandths over 9.5. So let's flip it upside down, knock the ring gear out, and see where we are with it out of this carrier with this cross pin here. Okay, simple but effective way to get this off. Just back these out a little bit. Don't whack them a lot, just whack them a little bit. You don't want to hurt the threads. You just want to walk the ring gear off. And there it is. And huzzah, here's our ring gear. Isn't it funny how tape measures differ? This one's like 1/8 of an inch over and the other one's a 1/16 of an inch over. So there is a discrepancy in these tape measures. Yeah, I really wish I had a decent pair of calipers. Okay, I'm gonna use this. I've got it set right at 2. And so it sits nice and flat, then this sits nice and flat, and I'm just going to walk it around and see how close we are to 11.5. I'm going to put this picture up so you can see it, but maybe you can see it here. So it's -2 because I set it at 2. So 11.5, 10, 9.5. Look at that. I'm just a shard. Let me back it out a little bit. I am just a tiny shard over 11.5. So like so close. There's no way I'm going to actually get it better than that. So I think we're gonna call it there and put it on the locker. I was just gonna do a basic wire wheeling to knock down the roundness of this edge, or these sharp edges from the grinder. We don't need to go ham. Please don't like bury the bristles deep in these teeth and screw them all up. There's a heat treating on these teeth we don't want to mess up. Another reason that's great to use that flap disc is it really keeps the heat down. Like a grinding wheel and spinning it slow might heat it up some. This kept it nice and cool. We kept our heat treating. We don't want to ruin the heat treating now with this wire wheel. We just want to lightly attack it. You know what? I'm gonna get a paint marker and I'm gonna mark the tooth I start on like a smarty pants. All right, I did this slopey side, which is the coast side of the tooth. Now I'm gonna go through and do the drive side, which is the straight down inside of the tooth. All right, there it is. You can see I didn't, you can still see the dust in there. You can see I didn't just bury that wire wheel in here and go nuts. But if I run my fingers all along it, I can feel that that edge, though still like sharp from the grinding, is kind of smooth and rolled over, and I can just run my thumb on it before, which probably would have cut me. So you're probably not even looking at this. Which probably would have cut me before if I had done this, but now that nice rolled edge, it's not even screwing up my thumbnail. It's just a gently rolled edge there is all you need. Don't go bananas. And it helps too to knock down the stress concentrations on this silver part of the ring. So now this is completely shaved and ready to bolt on. But I got one more thing for you. This is the stock ring and pinion. It's probably a Dana. Yep, Dana, I see it right there. So let's see the diameter difference if we can. Okay, so even the Dana is pretty tall. If I get these, yeah, concentric. Look how tall the Dana is even. So I imagine that actually the need to shave this is based on the fact that it's for a high pinion, because you can get the same ring and pinion for any Ford Dana 60. I think the high pinion just needs a lot more work to shave it down than the low pinion. Alright folks, this is part of my Dana 60 build series, shaving the ring gear. I'm gonna go right from this into building my Dana 60. Hopefully the video doesn't take too long to come out. I'll probably put this video out before I finish building the Dana 60, but if you do a shaved ring gear or a shaved Dana 60, especially on a Super Duty, anticipate having to do this as well. I hope this helps you a bunch when you go to do it, and I hope that yours is just as successful as mine, and I hope that all of us who do this run these ring and pinions to the moon and back without any problems. But we'll see. I mean, every ounce of clearance we can get is solid gold, right? So let's see if it's worth the payoff, grinding a ring gear down to fit in a housing. Anyway, I'm Daniel. This is Aired Down. Don't forget about Sneebies Off-Road. Have a great night. Peace out. Go rock crawling. See you later.